Hey, Whiskey Benders, thanks for coming back and watching this show, this episode of Collector Conversations. And today I have a very, 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 very special guest, and that would be Mr. David Spaid, also known as Dad in my circles. Hey, Dad, how are you doing?
Good, good. Thank you.
This is the
How are
best.
you?
Yeah, I'm doing really great. This is the best interview ever. You haven't even done it yet. But
Nope.
I see your collection behind you. I love it, as always.
Yeah,
And I'm sure,
those are all the giveaways.
yes, we can do an entire show on those. And we will
Yeah.
be there in person. But let's kick it off. I wanted to interview you, and I have some specific questions about how you started in all this. And
Oh, okay.
there's some certain bottles I have that I want to have you talk about because people don't believe they're real. And
Okay.
let's kick it off for the first of hopefully many collector conversations together. The first one we've put on film, so to speak, because we've had
Yeah.
many conversations. But my first question is, what got you into collecting miniature bottles and large liquor bottles?
Well, the minis, we had a basement recreation room. And when the recreation room was created by a friend of my dad's who was really good at building, he put a bar in the corner. And my dad was getting some things to stock the bar, and he had 7 miniatures there from different times we'd gone on trips and things. And this was 1956. I was 14,
Wow.
and he said, "Well, I got to get rid of these to make room." And I said, "No, you can't get rid of those. I'll take them." And he said, "Well, if you take them, you can't drink them." And I said, "I know, no, I won't."
Yeah.
At that time in 1956, there were only 7 states that allowed the sale of miniatures.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Alaska, Nevada, New Mexico, Florida, Maryland, Wisconsin, and I can't remember the 7th one.
Time for some research.
Yeah,
I had
but
no idea that was. I knew Ohio was weird, but
well, Ohio had previously allowed some miniatures, but only, I believe, for just a short time. And then you could buy miniatures in Ohio if it was under 42 proof.
right.
So like Southern Comfort made a special miniature just for Ohio.
Wow. Yeah, I have
Um,
a Duffy's Tavern. That's
yeah, there were a few that were done. And the same with grocery stores. Grocery stores could sell large bottles if they were 42 proof and under, or maybe it was
huh.
under 42 proof. I'm not
And
sure.
not percent. We're not talking percent. We're talking proof.
Yes,
So
proof.
we're
Yeah.
like
So
liqueur.
21%.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not
That's
not very tasty.
no, no.
No. So anyway, um, my uncle Jack lived in Maryland, and so when my dad would go down to visit him, he would get, I'd get those then at Christmas or birthday or, any special occasion like that.
Right.
And I always had to keep them hidden away because my grandmother was a teetotaler, and this is my dad's mother. And
Okay.
so finally one day, I don't know, I guess I was in high school then, and I said, "I'm going to show them to Grandma." And he said, "All right, okay." And then she thought it was pretty neat. So,
Oh,
and she
wow.
said, "Well, you can't drink them." I said, "No, no, I'm not drinking any of them." And I kept up with the miniatures, adding, things here and there, but I didn't have that many. And then in the late 60s, people started collecting Jim Beam bottles.
Oh yeah.
And where we lived here in North Torrance, there was the Rhodium Drive-In
Say that one more time. You broke up a bit.
every week. Oh, okay. The Rhodium Drive-In was
Okay.
just about a mile from where our little townhome was. And so I'd go there on some Sundays. And one time I went, and this guy was selling Jim Beam bottles. And I went, oh, wow. And I can remember I bought a New Hampshire bottle, and it was $7. And that was $7. Geez.
Yeah.
And about that time, a club was starting for Jim Beam collectors up in Northern California in Berkeley. And they had quite a few club members up there. And it turned out then that they knew about Jim Beam bottles that were being done for lots of other places. And there'd been ones done for states. And on the basis of all the Jim Beam bottles being sold, a lot of people then went to, other distilleries. And one of
Right.
the first ones to offer fancy bottles was Lionstone, which was started by a man named David Lowenstein, and Lowenstein and Lionstone are basically the same.
Okay.
And he came out with a set of 6 Western characters, and there was even a miniature set of 6 characters.
Wow.
And I got a hold of that miniature set, and I thought, oh wow, this is really great, you know. And then slowly but surely, more and more companies started issuing fancy bottles, so that there were clubs springing up everywhere. Here in Southern California, there was the Queen Mary Jim Beam Club,
I remember that.
and they soon made the Fox, which was taken from a Royal Dalton little red fox,
Yep.
became sort of the symbol of the company. And they made foxes for different clubs and things. And so they made a orange, or was the Long Beach Queen Mary Club.
Right.
And they made a fox all in white. And I can remember I found it at a liquor store down here. Now, at that time, most bottles full were actually selling for about $7. There was a company called Whitefront that had a few places, sort of like a Bush League Costco of today. But
Okay.
once a month they would get in their beam bottles, and I knew to shoot over there in the afternoon and see what they had. But
Those
as the
were
book
all big.
started,
Those were big bottles, though, right? You're talking
those
about.
were all big bottles, and I
Right.
didn't do that much with the miniatures. And then the miniatures were sort of in the background for some time. I kept them all. I really enjoyed them. I added to it. Every time I'd go to Las Vegas, there was a place called Bud's right on the Strip, which is now part of the Caesar's Palace complex.
Wow.
But
Was that the
we'd
place you
go
used
in
to
there.
take me?
What?
Did you used to take me there?
Yes, I'm sure you were there when you were a little kid.
Okay.
And I can remember once walking out of Bud's, and this couple came out behind me, and she turned to him and said, "You must have the biggest collection of anybody in the world." And he says, "Well, I've got a lot of bottles." And she said, "How many do you have now?" And he said, 65. And so I laughed, and I don't remember if anybody was with me or not or anything, but 65 was, nothing. And
Yeah.
because people were having we used to go to the Rose Bowl swap meet.
Yep.
And I can remember people there bringing like Mexican miniatures, and there'd be maybe 100 in a box or so. And then, well, what do you want for that?
Wow.
Oh, $15. Okay.
Wow.
And so we added miniatures, and um, one of the first ones I can remember was but it wasn't sold in California, was the Larson ship Invincible, which was like an old sailing ship.
I don't remember that one.
And they came out with two miniatures of that, one in glass and one in ceramic, and they were sold up in Reno. And so I knew somebody going to Reno. I said, will you get me one of those? Oh yeah, I'll get you one. So
Yeah.
that sort of
So,
started me on more, along with that and the Lionstone set of 6 Western characters were
so
my first ones.
Las Vegas, is that right? 1975, 76?
Yeah, it was still, that was still a big store. There were other places too, but that had the largest selection of
Yeah.
miniatures that we knew of in Las Vegas.
So I would have been 10, 11 years old. And that was about the time you got me into the mini beers, which I
Yeah,
still collect to this day. I finally added a new one the other day. I've got almost all of them. That's why I went to
very good.
whiskey stuff. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
very.
it makes sense that Grandpa would have those 7 miniatures, probably kept them off the airplane because the both Grandma and Grandpa kept the swizzle sticks and the sugar packets and the sugar.
Yeah, well, that was just mainly my mother.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she had match pads and swizzle sticks, and
Kept it all.
yeah.
Some of those match pads are pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
So that you said 1956. So if we do the math, I'm gonna let you do the math. How many years is that?
Well, 56, 44, 64 years.
Wow. So what are you collecting mainly these days?
Um, Basically tequilas,
Right.
and there's some really, really nice tequilas. Most of them are in Mexico, of course.
Sure.
Um, but I have a friend in Rosarito Beach who has the second largest liquor store in all of Mexico. The other one is in Mexico City.
Wow.
And in fact, we took you there
Right.
about 10 years ago, I think.
Yeah, it was interesting because it's kind of a front because the actual front of it seemed like a Mexican convenience store, and then
Yeah, it's just a little tiny grocery store, and then you look off and there's a doorway to the left, and then there's this huge, huge room of tequilas and now mezcals. When I first went down there, mezcals took up approximately, oh, 4 or 5 feet on one shelf.
yeah.
Now it's maybe 6 shelves and maybe 15 feet long.
Wow. Yeah,
It's
that room was huge, and then
yeah, he's made it much, much nicer,
yeah,
and
wow.
he just keeps getting more and more stuff.
That's great. Yeah, some of those tequilas are amazing, and if someone's watching this who's new to collecting, go to Total Wine if you have a Total Wine in your area. Some great stuff. Just went there the other day, and of course you had everything, Dad. But for someone who wants to get into it, they're glass and fancy, and oh gosh, they're great. And I was collecting them a little while when I was adrift after the mini beer thing was exhausted, but I settled on whiskey, as you can see.
Yes.
Um, tell us the story behind the origin of the Midwest Miniature Bottle Club and the annual meeting that we have.
Okay, that was in the late 1970s, and there was a Jim Beam convention in Chicago. So at that convention, I already knew of collectors in different areas. And I sent out letters, of course, there was no email then, to all these people and said, I'm going to host a dinner. Would you like to come? And so I got people from Michigan, Illinois, Indiana. I don't remember all of which. And there was a man named Brad, and I'm sorry to say I've forgotten his last name now.
Sure.
But he worked for E. Martinoni and Company, which made Pancho Villa tequila, and they did a lot of fancy bottles. And anyway, he said, I'll co-sponsor it with you. And he brought miniatures of everything that they did and gave him, put one at each place setting.
Oh,
and so we had the dinner at the Hyatt near the Chicago airport. And on the basis of that, people said, we really should have a club going back here because, there was the big Jim Beam Club in Northern California, and we had started in 1970 a miniature collectors club here in Southern California called the Lilliputian Club.
Right, I remember that.
And so basically, we met then at the Playboy Club in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin.
Okay.
And there were four of us: Vern Brinker, Jim Cruz, Mike Olson, and myself. And the four of us started the Midwest Miniature Bottle Club, and that was, golly, I think 1979.
Okay.
Yeah, I think 79.
I remember I went to one of those shows because we went to the Key Club.
Yeah, that was the Gaslight Club.
Okay.
And the Gaslight Club had a club in downtown Chicago, and then they had one at the airport.
Wow.
And
yeah, you had to go through a phone booth to get to the burlesque club.
Yeah.
I remember being there, and the woman on stage had me come up and took my sport coat off, and she tried to put it on, but it was too small.
I don't.
But yeah, indelible memories. That was good
Yeah.
stuff.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And I remember seeing Vern Brinker's collection of mini beers, and he had a bunch I didn't have, and I turned into a little brat because I wanted them, and I thought he would be a nice man and just give them to me, and that's when I learned the hard, cold truth of collecting.
Yes.
I remember that. That's
how true. How true.
I was not a good kid. But that was a great trip. Hey, well, there was supposed to be a show this particular. Hey, honey. That's Karen trying to get in.
Okay.
Say hello to Dad.
Hi.
Hi.
David.
Doing an interview.
All right, I'm just grabbing that computer out of here.
All right.
All right, love you.
So, yeah, there was supposed to be a show this year, but the pandemic put the kibosh on it, as well as so many other things.
We're just hoping that we can have one next year.
God, I hope so. It's just, there's certain things I look forward to, and this is one of them, and oh boy. But
I think that lots and lots of people are going to be really looking forward to coming next year because they couldn't do anything this year. And they come from all over, Vietnam, Spain, Mexico, Canada, lots of different places.
So I have a bit of a controversy that I want you to settle. And
if I can.
There are people who think that there are no official Pappy Van Winkle miniature bottles. And you say there are, and I actually have this one that you gave me.
Oh, yes. Well.
And then there's this other one, which is really odd. It's the Bible Belter
Yes, that also contains Van Winkle juice.
Aged 15 years, Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey, genuine old line sour mash, bottled by the Whiskey Connoisseur, Scotland, ML12 6LP.
Yeah, that was
107 proof.
a little place called Biggar, Biggar, I believe, Scotland. And they did lots and lots and lots of miniatures, and they did lots of big bottles too. What they would do is they would buy casks from distilleries and then put different names on them, but often they would do, like this is a Macallan Scotch, or this is a Glenfiddich Scotch, or a Glenlivet Scotch. But in this case, and I saw Julian Van Winkle at a show, and I'd originally met him, back in the 70s. And I said, "Are you ever going to do a glass miniature?" Because he'd actually done some ceramic miniatures, Fireman series and things like that.
Wow.
But he said, no, it's too hard. And I said, well, I have the one that you did. And he said, well, I never did one. I said, no, but you did sell a cask to the Connoisseur in Biggar, Scotland. And he said, oh, yes. And I said, well, they bottled them. And he was very surprised to find that out. And none of them were ever sold in the U.S. They were only sold there in Scotland and probably England too.
Wow. Well, I treasure them. They're pretty cool.
Yeah, that's there may have been a third bottle, but it did not have the Van Winkle name on it. Only that one.
No.
Yeah.
I must have it.
It was a bottle with Nixon's picture on it.
You're kidding me. Oh,
no, and I can't think what it said, but.
So the cask was sold legitimately to a bottler, right, and they bottled some miniatures. So it's,
yeah.
I'm sure some people will argue that they're not official, but you know what? Those people don't have one.
Yeah, and there's also, well, it is actual Van Winkle 15-year-old in the bottle, yeah. So
what year did these come out?
Oh gee. I'm thinking it had to be in the 1990s, maybe late 90s, maybe early this century. Okay. But I'm not really sure. I know I got the Connoisseur to make one bottle, or they made several of them for me with my name on them, and my birthday. I think it was a special birthday. But they would do that for people. There was a collector back in Massachusetts, and every year he would have one done for his granddaughter.
Oh.
Richard Cotton was his name, but he's long since passed.
Well, I have a very rare bottle that says the 4 Spaids on it.
Yeah. That was done, oh gee. Oh, well, some time ago.
In the late 70s, for sure.
Yeah, well.
80, 81? I was in high school in 81.
I became friends with Ed Fitzgerald in Milwaukee. And he had the Edward P. Fitzgerald Company, and he was the one who brought in originally the Rhinebend miniatures, as well as large bottles, and cord miniatures. And so he retired and sold his company, but he had a non-compete thing written into the contract.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And so they started a company for just collector bottles with the guy who was his original salesman, John Salsrud. So it was called the John Salsrud Company.
Okay.
And they filled a lot of bottles for me, all legit.
Yeah.
In fact, when we first did the set of little geisha ceramic miniatures, there were a set of 6 of those.
Yep.
And so he submitted all of them to the government, and said he was going to have them filled there in Wisconsin. And they only approved 4 of the
Why?
6, because one, they said, oh, you can see the woman's nipple.
Oh God.
And the other one, they said, well, there was too much cleavage in those 2 bottles. So they had to be sold empty, with the people who then bought the set of 4 filled ones.
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy. And we brought in 500 sets to the US. And I went back to Japan after that because I wanted to buy more sets, because there were lots of people still wanting them.
Right.
And I was at the Japanese firm, and I had an interpreter, or interpreter, as they often say. And the man who owned the firm, who had made the bottles originally there in Seto, Japan, got up and crooked his finger at me like this, and I followed him over to the window, and he pointed down. And since I had not ordered them almost immediately, they used the hundreds that they had left as the basis for their new parking lot. So they crushed all the bottles and then
Oh.
just put macadam on top of them.
Wow. That's a great story. This
Yeah.
is why we're doing this, because
Yeah.
not only do I need to be refreshed on this stuff, I didn't know that, but there's lots of people out there, my whiskey benders. That's what you are if you're watching this. This stuff is just great. Well, tell us the craziest acquisition story, or just something that you wanted, needed, it was available for sale, and you just went to extreme measures to get it.
Oh, gee.
You have one?
Well, I can say one of my favorite bottles, and
Yeah.
also the most expensive bottle I ever bought. I had a good friend in Japan named Taizo. Well, we always said here in the U.S. Shiratsuchi, but that isn't the way he pronounced it. And he found out that Remy Martin was going to issue their special Louis XIII miniature, the crystal bottle,
Right.
with all the spires on it,
Yes.
in what was called the Diamante, or Diamond Edition.
Right.
And they made 140 of them.
Wow. Full size or miniature?
These are all miniatures. The full
Wow.
size, I don't know how many they made. But in the miniatures, they made only 140, and they put them up in a drawing in Japan. But the price was $1,400 per bottle.
And this was when?
Oh, this was about 20 years ago.
Yeah, that's
That was a fair amount.
a harder $1,400 than today.
So my friend Taizo put in lots and lots of names, and he got one for himself, got one for me, and he actually got a third one, and I don't know who that one went to. But I ended up paying $1,400 for it. I was offered.
Do you still have it?
Oh yes, I have it.
Oh,
yeah.
You got to show that one. I've probably seen it, and I just it didn't make much difference to me, because I have one, not the diamond one, but one that you.
The regular one, yeah. Well, that's up to about $500 now.
Woohoo!
Yeah. But I was offered $2,000 by a French collector at the show in Barcelona in 2015.
Nice.
And I said, no, no thanks.
Yeah, there's a good story behind that one. It's hard to
Yeah,
let go
yeah.
of stuff like
I,
that.
s- I said, no, this is going to go to my son. And he was like, oh, because he has an incredible collection. There are several French collectors who have
Yeah.
magnificent French bottles.
So the cliffhanger for the audience is that they don't know you have two sons. So
Yes.
we'll just leave that alone for now.
Yeah.
But that's a
But
great story.
he's not as bottle connected or enthused as you are.
Yeah, but he is on the snuff bottles that Grandpa collected, which is really
Yes.
cool. I wonder if the collecting bug that Grandma had anything to do with going through the Depression and just keeping everything. I don't know. Something to think about. But
Yeah, I don't know when my mother, your grandmother, started collecting plates, the date plates.
yeah, I have one. You gave me the Harvard Brewery.
Oh yes, yeah,
Hangs in
yeah,
my office right over there.
yeah.
I
The
love it.
there were well, in many respects, I think she was also a hoarder.
Yeah,
Because
yeah. Well, classy hoarder though. It always was
yeah.
very nicely done and very clean and curated.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I think that you answered kind of the crazy bottle question and the favorite bottle question. Um,
Sort of the same, yeah.
Yeah, next time I'll come up with some more questions and we'll do a few more of these. I'm looking forward to doing one when I come out next and looking at the giveaways because behind you are Schaefer and Vader giveaway bottles. And for those watching who don't know about those, they're very fancy ceramics that were done pre-Prohibition, 1910 through 1915, I guess, somewhere in that time span. And they were given away to the best customers at a bar, for example. So I don't know if there was a catalog, but if you owned a bar and you had a guy that came in every day at 5 p.m. at Christmas time, you'd give him a big music box. And you have a few of those music boxes. They're
Yes.
big. They come with a plate and little glassware, but I won't go too far into that because that's a whole episode on its own. And you've got one of the best collections. You only collect the bottles with a cork. There's matchstick holders and creamers, and there's all kinds of stuff they did. And some of them are pretty cool, actually, but you got to stop somewhere, right?
Yeah, well, I have about a half dozen that aren't bottles that are all extremely good.
Yeah, one's that one from Cuba that I found for you.
Yes, yeah.
I like that one. Well, hey, we're going to wrap it up. This is Scott Spaid here with David Spaid. Dad, hey. We are signing off, and this is Collector Conversations, and stay tuned for more. Thanks, everybody. Bye, Dad.
Bye.